On my 70th birthday, my daughter stole my dream trip, so I made a heartbreaking choice. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The way the sunlight crept through the curtains, painting my living room in soft gold, felt almost like a betrayal. I had imagined this day a party filled with laughter. Instead, silence hung heavy in the air. When I opened my gifts, I saw their faces. Anticipation glimmered in their eyes. I thought they shared in my excitement. But then, as they exchanged glances, a chill ran down my spine. One said, "We wanted to surprise you." Just then, another pulled out a glossy brochure: Paris, Venice, Rome. My heart sank. In that moment, I felt something break within me. The dream trip I had saved for all my life was slipping through my fingers. I looked at the brochure, feeling sick. Those were the cities I had longed to see, even when my husband was still with me. A life spent dreaming, now twisted into their selfish surprise. I had been planning this trip since forever, just me and my late husband walking hand in hand through the streets of Europe, sipping wine by the Eiffel Tower. My daughters didn't understand. They had their own plans, mingling them with mine. What right did they have to take that away from me? As they discussed excitement, my chest tightened. I wanted to scream. They noticed my silence. "Mom, it's a gift," one said, her voice filled with warmth I craved. It felt like a punch. Their joy was a mirror to my despair. I shook my head, tears brimming. No. It was raw. The room froze. Shock written on their faces. I felt their disappointment echo around me, sharper than any knife. Then came the first tremor of dread. Was I about to ruin my daughter's happiness? But what about mine? I had sacrificed so much for them. Why couldn't they see my dreams, now twisted in the shadows of their bright plans? Every heartbeat pounded in my head. I needed space. I needed air. So I stepped outside, the world too vivid, too bright. Almost mocking me. The sunset painted the sky in deep reds and purples, yet I felt only darker thoughts swirling within. I stood by the old oak tree in the yard, its branches swaying like ancient hands reaching for me. In that moment, I made a choice. A heartbreaking choice I hoped would bring clarity. I would not go with them. I would turn my back on their excitement. I'd plan my own journey, quietly, in my own time. But how would they react? Would they understand the heartache hidden behind my decision? The sun dipped low, a ball of fire on the horizon. Shadows wrapped around me, whispering doubts. What if I lost them in the process? Questions rushed in, unanswered, leaving me spiraling, and there I stood, breath catching in my throat, my soul aching for freedom against the weight of loss, gleaming against the fading light. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next morning, I stood at the kitchen sink, staring blankly out at the garden, the dew glistening like tiny diamonds on leaves. The aroma of brewing coffee filled the air, a quiet comfort I clung to amidst the turmoil of my thoughts. I had always loved mornings, the way the world slowly awakened, but today felt different. A strange heaviness settled on my shoulders. My daughters were still asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of the emotional chasm that had appeared overnight. I moved through the motions of making breakfast, pouring cereal into bowls, and brewing coffee. Yet, my heart was too full of conflicting emotions to find any joy in the familiarity of it all. The moments of warmth I'd enjoyed just the day before felt like distant memories, overshadowed by resentment and hurt. As I prepared their plates, I reflected on a quiet moment we had shared, years ago, in a simpler time when laughter was just around the corner. How had we gotten here? I felt a sudden surge of misplaced anger toward myself. Had I not been protective enough? Had I let my dreams lay dormant for too long? The crackle of bacon sizzling on the stove was interrupted by the padding of their footsteps on the stairs. I tried to mask my feelings, greeting them with forced cheerfulness, though the smile felt heavy on my lips. "Good morning, sunshine," I called out, trying to muster energy I didn't possess. They brightened at the sight of breakfast but paused. Their eyes searched my face, sensing the undercurrent of tension that hung in the air. My youngest, Sophie, looked at me, her brow furrowing with concern. "Mom, are you okay?" I nodded, stifling the urge to express the storm brewing within me. "Of course, just a little tired." It felt like lying. I lifted my coffee mug in an attempt to hide the quiver of my hands. The moment passed, yet that brief exchange echoed louder than any birthday surprise. We sat around the table, tension hanging like an unwelcome guest. They shared animated stories about their plans for the trip, their excitement palpable, while I remained silent, a spectator to my own life. Each word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper inside as they spoke of places I longed to explore, as if they were taunting me in my own home. Later in the day, I busied myself in the garden, a refuge I had tended to for years. Planting flowers had been a passion of mine that linked me to my past. My husband would often help me cultivate the soil, each sprout signifying hope and new beginnings. But today, even the soil felt abrasive against my fingers. As I dug into the earth, a soft voice burst through my thoughts. "Need a hand?" I looked up to see an old neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, who had come to tend to her roses. The kindness in her tone wrapped around my heart like a warm embrace. I nodded, fighting tears. "Just trying to plant some new blooms," I replied, my voice cracking. "Better to get your hands dirty than to let those sad thoughts take root," she chirped, planting herself beside me. Together, we turned over the earth, exchanging stories about the changing seasons and vibrant colors. Somewhere amid our laughter, I felt an easing of the weight pressing on my chest. It was a reminder that kindness could still flourish amidst grief. As she shared tales of her own dreams I felt a connection deepening. The world outside my home was filled with people who understood love and loss, people who could mend the frayed edges of my heart, even if just for a moment. Later that evening, with the sun setting, casting a golden hue over everything, I resolved to dismiss my hurt and reach out to my daughters. Perhaps I could explain the pain they inadvertently caused. Maybe they would understand if I shared my memories and dreams. As I approached them, heart racing, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I paused, the list of things I wanted to share abruptly stilled. I opened the door to find an envelope on the welcome mat, but there was no one there. Curiosity gnawed at me as I picked it up. Unfolding the note, my heart sank. It was from a travel agency, detailing a flight and hotel reservation to Paris, my destination, my dreams, but written not in my scrawling penmanship. There was a second note attached with a phrase I hadn't expected: "Mom, we love you, and we want you to have this." My daughters had gone behind my back. There was still a chance to speak, to reclaim my ownership of my dreams, but now I was left grappling with another knife to my heart, betrayal mixing with concern. Would this trip heal my aching spirit or deepen the divide? Trembling, I read the note again. Tonight, everything felt like it was shifting, on the brink of unraveling or blossoming into something new. Life had always been a delicate dance of dreams and heartaches, and now, standing at this new precipice, I was unsure of my next step. My heart raced, caught between love and frustration, as I whispered a silent prayer for clarity in a world that felt impossibly chaotic. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and violet, coloring my heart with the same conflicting emotions swirling inside. I stood at the threshold, holding the note as if it were a fragile piece of glass that might shatter with the slightest movement. My mind raced, entangled in thoughts of betrayal and love, desperation and hope. I could hear my daughters' laughter from the kitchen, a symphony of vitality and youth, as they prepared their favorite dinner. The scent wafted through the open door, but it felt like a distant echo of warmth, unable to reach the cold knot of disappointment tightening in my chest. Who had given them permission to weave together this surprise, this half-hearted gesture masked as love? They thought they understood me, but did they truly grasp what this trip represented? With trembling hands, I placed the note on the console table and stepped back into the kitchen. Sophie caught my eye first, her cheeks flushed, while my eldest, Mia, hummed along to the music they'd put on, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath my skin. Hey, Mom. We have a surprise for you. Sophie exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I opened my mouth, ready to ask about the envelope, ready to challenge them, but the words stuck in my throat, caught between my emotions. Before I could respond, Mia slipped next to me, nudging me playfully. You're going to love what we have planned for you. It's a special dinner. Just for you. They presented a spread of my favorite dishes, the sight of them unstopped by my melancholia for a fleeting second. Although my heart ached, I plastered a smile on my face, trying to mirror their excitement, but as I watched them chat and laugh about what they had prepared, frustration simmered just beneath the surface. Who were they to think they could neatly package my dreams into a gift? I had carried those dreams inside me for so long, they were mine to cultivate, not to slip away into the hands of well-meaning daughters, oblivious to the deeper implications of their actions. Eating became an exercise in restraint, every bite tasting like a bitter reminder of their theft. My mind wandered through memories of past celebrations, of vibrant days spent planning adventures, discussions bursting with dreams of exploration, conversations that now felt muted, buried under a weight of unspoken words. As the night wore on, the laughter continued but began to deflate as they noticed the cloud veiling my enthusiasm. It's as if they felt the distance grow, an invisible wall that rose between us, forged from my overwhelming emotions. I decided I needed to take a stand. My heart wanted to shout and remind them that love was not always synonymous with sacrifice, especially when it felt forced. Girls, I began, my voice quaking slightly, about that letter. They paused mid-conversation, eyes locking onto me with sudden intensity. In that moment, I saw reflection, a glimmer of uncertainty. I could sense their anxiety building, anticipating a confrontation. But before I could lay bare my feelings, the doorbell rang again, echoing in the tense silence. I glanced at the clock, it was late. With hesitation, I moved to the door, and my heart dropped when I noticed a familiar figure standing beneath the porch light, draped in shadows. It was Jane, my sister, the very person I hadn't spoken to in years due to a fallout that felt insurmountable at the time. Hey, she said softly, her eyes searching mine. I got the note. My daughters rushed up, excitement and apprehension mingling in their expressions. Aunt Jane. They chirped, their happiness dampened by my muffled tension. Can we come in? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, my heart quivering. For a fleeting moment, I feared the ramifications of her arrival, the turmoil she might bring to an already delicate situation. Yet, oddly enough, her presence also held a hint of strength, of resolve. As we shuffled into the living room, I felt the air grow thicker, an impending storm of truths and emotions about to unfurl. Jane glanced around the room, her gaze settling on the table where the letter lay, reminding me of the hidden depth beneath our superficial exchanges. Let's talk about everything, she said, her voice steady. I think it's time. I could see my daughters exchanging glances, the weight of their surprise hanging in the air once more. My heart raced with possibilities. The laughter and joy they had built began to dissipate, like mist dissipating in the dawn light. Something beyond all of us was about to unravel. I felt overwhelmed, the possibilities suddenly at the cusp of a resolution that could either deepen our wounds or mend them. Yet as the old specter of resentment shared its breath with the air between us, I realized the past could not simply be washed away with the promise of a travel itinerary. In that moment, the very roots of my dreams began to stir, ready to either blossom or break. I knew the night held answers, but navigating through the labyrinth of choices perilously looming on the horizon felt daunting. I stood at the precipice of transformation, my heart caught in the balance, waiting for the first courageous step that would change everything. The air thickened in the wake of Jane's unexpected presence, her invitation to talk unspooling like an ancient tapestry unraveling at the seams. I recognized that the conversation we needed to have extended beyond my feigned gratitude for a surprise dinner. My emotions, all tangled and raw, demanded to be addressed. All those years lost between me and Jane felt like a chasm echoing with our unspoken words. Mia and Sophie settled onto the couch, wide-eyed, the excitement of their earlier delight dimming like the fading glow of twilight. I sat across from Jane, acutely aware of the distance in the room. All those moments that had kept us apart danced on the periphery of my thoughts, haunted by regret and the worn-out mechanisms of our past. I can't believe it's been so long, Jane murmured, shifting her gaze from my daughters to me. I'm sorry it took a letter for us to meet again, but it took a lot more than that, I interjected, a prickly heat rising in my chest. The tremor in my voice surprised me, but there was a torrent of hurt that begged to be heard. It wasn't just time that slipped away, Jane. It was trust, and the weight of every unshared burden. Mia's expression faltered as she picked up on the tension, glancing at Sophie for solace. My heart ached watching them struggle with the undertow of the situation as if they were swept off their feet by a tide they could neither predict nor understand. Jane flinched, her vulnerability laid bare. I know. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought time would heal everything, but it didn't. I'm not the same person I was back then. I want to make amends. A part of me wanted to reach out, to extend forgiveness as a lifebuoy, but old pains wrapped around my heart like vines, suffocating my ability to breathe easy. The call for peace was met with the echoes of grievances bubbling beneath the surface, like a pot simmering on the edge of boiling over. Sophie broke the silence, her innocence cutting through the tension. Mom, is everything okay? You're all acting super serious, and we wanted the night to be special. I turned to my daughters, whose eyes reflected worry mingled with confusion, and my chest tightened under the weight of their expectation. I felt compelled to shield them from the complexities of adult relationships, yet here they were, standing unwittingly at the intersection of pain and healing. It's more than okay, honey, I stammered, swallowing hard. It's just complicated. Mia leaned forward. Is Aunt Jane why you're upset? Did she really take the note? Will you talk to her and fix things? Her genuine concern cut through me like glass, forcing me to confront my role as a mother, the roles we all had played in the shadows of our past. Would I be a beacon of boldness, or would I just shield them from the unraveling truth? Things aren't that simple, I said, my tone wavering. The words tasted bitter, and Jane nodded slowly, anguish knitting her brow. I know how complicated it can feel, especially when there's so much history, but I came here because I've missed you. We can try to rebuild. At that moment, my chest felt constricted, clashing emotions fighting for dominance. The love I bore for my daughters and the unanswered hurt from Jane fought to claim my voice. Yet, deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. If I could confront the past, perhaps we could forge a new path. Still, I hesitated, knowing the shift would not come without cost. Without my prompting, Jane continued, her voice trembling with sincerity. I heard about the trip. I know how much it means to you. It brought everything back for me, the promises we made to each other when we were young, before life got in the way. I stilled, my heart racing. How could the thought of relinquished dreams have found a way to intertwine between us, so tethered by heartache? The remnants of resentment sparked to life, while the glimmer of hope threatened to drown out my unresolved despair. Why did you come today? I demanded, my voice a mix of anger and pain. Is this about the trip or about redemption? The silence that followed felt like an eternity, stretching taut between longing and regret. But in the depths of her gaze, I saw raw honesty, and it pulled me in. I came because I want to fix things with you. I don't want another year to pass where we stay apart. Your dreams matter, and so do you. For the first time in years, the words danced like a spark. Could reconciliation bring the healing I craved? Yet, my choices loomed before me like the weight of the world, and then my phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the tumultuous air. I shot a glance at the screen, my stomach dropping as I read the message. Mom, we need to talk about the trip. There's something you don't know. It's about Dad. The past collided with the now as the world around me shifted. The door to revelation cracked open wide, and dread coiled tightly in my stomach. Would I be able to handle whatever storm awaited? I looked at my daughters, their youthful faces filled with uncertainty, and then to Jane, recognizing that the road was about to become much more treacherous. The phone's vibration lingered in the stillness, thrumming a cold reality into the warm shadows of rekindled memories. I stared at the screen, the words haunting me like a ghost I could neither embrace nor escape. I swallowed hard, the lump weighing down a throat already tight with unspoken emotions. Mom? Mia's voice broke through my fog. What's wrong? I need a moment, I managed to say, even as my heart raced towards the abyss. The gravity of the message churned inside me, twisting and turning until there was no clarity left. And yet, the flickering light of hope I felt moments ago flickered uncertainly. After all, what could possibly come next? Jane leaned forward, sensing my distress. You okay? The concern in her voice was genuine, and I was reminded of the past friendship that had once flourished under simpler circumstances. It felt strangely comforting to see her, even amid the storm brewing beneath the surface. With each tick of the clock, the seconds wore heavy on my skin. Just give me a minute, please. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the rising panic, but the urge to unravel the hidden truth about my daughter's trip vied for attention. As if sensing the weight of my hesitation, Sophie reached for my hand, her tiny fingers threading through mine with the same implicit trust kids extended to adults to shield them from the unpredictability of life. Mama, is it about the trip? Sophie wondered softly. Her innocence cut like a thread through the fabric of my worry, urging me to parse through the chaotic emotions. I turned to face Jane instead, summoning the courage to confront our complicated past yet again. I didn't come here to create more distance, Jane. I wanted to have a real conversation, one that might heal, but they're still my daughters. I have to protect them from whatever this news is. Protect them and shield yourself, you mean? Jane's tone held a hint of challenge, her eyes searching mine for something I wasn't ready to share. My heart clenched. You don't get to tell me how to feel or what I should do. The words tumbled out, unbidden, shaken but unyielding, revealing how much pain still lay tethered to our history. She loves us, Aunt Jane, Mia said, her voice steady, that's why she's hesitant. We're her everything. But we wanted you to come, and now you're here. Wouldn't it be good to talk? You and Mom, maybe? A glimmer of hope curled at the edges of my heart as I looked at Jane's face, softening for just the briefest moment at Mia's tender perspective. Vulnerability was a bridge we had both avoided for too long. Perhaps this moment was one of those unexpected shards of kindness we'd each needed the prod toward healing, but the air around us crackled with unfinished conversations, murky secrets that loomed just beneath the surface. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I gripped Sophie's hand tightly, knowing that a deeper revelation awaited. I need a bit more time, I told them. I placed my fingers over the phone, the screen still glowing with the unanswered message that hung over me like an ominous storm cloud. I just need a moment. The tension amplified, heavy with unvoiced questions, and I took a shuddering breath. All three of them watched me, their trust buoying me up even as uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my heart. Everything was about to shift again if I didn't seize the reins. Still, the weight of the hidden truth loomed larger than my desire to share. Before I could slip back further into the depths of my thoughts, Mia's small voice echoed through my tormented mind. Mom, we love you no matter what happens. Can we stay together? The sincerity in her eyes held me, trapping me in an unbreakable bond. I felt the walls of the past pressing in, infinite layers accumulating, the warmth of memories intertwined with grief. I turned to Jane, whose gaze flickered with confusion and understanding. What was I to do? The urge both to share and to shield was nearly suffocating. My heart raced, not knowing whether revealing the depths of the message would tether us closer to healing or shatter hope entirely. As I prepared to speak, the phone buzzed again, an insistent disruption that felt like a misstep on a precarious tightrope. My thumb hovered over the screen, heart pounding. The next truth waited. In reality, a second message had arrived. My stomach twisted further as I saw the name, which was both familiar and haunting, Dad. A name wrapped in secrets and history. One I thought I had shielded Sophie and Mia from, yet here it was, tumbling into the light again. Mom? My daughters prompted softly, their confusion deepening. My breath trembled, feeling the sudden gravity of what lay ahead. The choice between hope and doubt loomed in the air, and as I stared into the faces that mirrored parts of my past, I was caught in a whirlwind of love and trepidation. How do I even begin to explain? I whispered to no one in particular, my heart fraying at the seams, but before I could find an answer, the next text flashed on the screen. You have to understand everything about your father before you go. There's something you don't know. We have to talk. With that profound revelation carving itself into my existence, I felt the walls I'd so carefully built begin to crumble, and a new storm brewed on the horizon, one that threatened to reshape everything I thought I knew. The sun cast a slant of warmth through the window, but inside, I felt nothing but chill. Each heartbeat was an echo of the message that loomed large in my mind, shivering my resolve. The clock continued to tick, pushing time forward, while I remained tethered to the moment. Sophie still clung to my hand, and her small, trusting squeeze felt like a lifeline amid the turmoil. "Mama, can you tell us what it is?" Sophie's voice was soft, filled with the innocent hope only a child could muster. I opened my mouth to speak, to try and soothe her with words that were meant to protect the very essence of motherhood. Yet the message lay heavy on my tongue, and the truth felt increasingly daunting. The reality that I could no longer shield them from every storm loomed larger in my mind, far larger than I had ever anticipated. "Your father," I finally whispered, the words sliding out as delicate as a feather, but carrying the weight of my entire history. "There's something you don't know about him." MIA's expression shifted. Do we have to talk about him?" The hesitance in her voice cut through me, reminding me of the secret we had all kept in our own way. The shadow of my past loomed over us like an immense cloud, darkening the path I hoped we could walk together. "I think we might have to," I replied, hugging Sophie to me without realizing it. My own fear was reflected in MIA's eyes just as I braced myself for their questions. Jane spoke, her tone breaking the fragile air. "You're going to have to explain, aren't you? It's not just about you anymore, it's about them." There was a firmness to her voice, reminiscent of the young woman I had once praised, strong, unwavering, and unyieldingly protective. I knew she was right. I had skirted around truths for too long, and each moment I prolonged the inevitable felt like sand slipping through my fingers. Yet, fear whispered of the unthinkable. What if revealing everything shears the tender connection I had with my girls? "Can you at least trust me?" Jane added quietly, the hardness of her previous tone softening as she watched my struggle. There was a glimmer of compassion, unexpected yet so familiar. I locked onto her gaze, and within that moment, I realized how much I had yearned for understanding, for someone who could recognize not just my flaws, but the daughter who had always wanted validation of her choices. "For so long, I thought concealing him would protect you," I choked out, "but maybe keeping this from you was a mistake." With the tension still thick in the air, I broke the seal on the memories I had buried so deeply. "Your father, he was not who you think he was. Leaving him behind was meant to shield us from his darkness, but that decision turned into a suffocating silence. I thought I was keeping you safe." Sophie blinked up at me, lost in translation as the reality of lost years ensnared her innocence. "But he's still my grandfather." "Is he bad?" The question held so much weight, and my heart cracked at the thought of the uncertainty enveloping our small family. "Not bad, but complex. He struggled with his own demons, and that played into why I left." The confession felt like an anchor pulling me deeper, fighting against the natural instinct to simply float above it all. "I think it's important for you to know this, but I've never wanted you to fear him or feel ashamed of our history. We deserve truth, no matter how painful. You deserve the story, even if it's shot through with shadows where light used to be." Mia stepped forward. "Mom, are you okay?" I sensed her desire to hold me steady, an innocent plea to shield me from pain, while all I wanted was to shield her from uncertainty. "It's just a lot to carry," I admitted, tears pooling in the corners of my eyes. "I never wanted this burden for you." And then came the gentle embrace of warmth I hadn't braced myself for. Jane reached over and placed her hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "We'll face it together. Whatever it is, we will figure it out." We always have. Hope sparked anew, but as quickly as it came, doubt followed closely in its wake, reminding me of the unintended heartaches that could still emerge. Just then, the phone buzzed again in my lap, precipitating a new dread. I hesitated, torn between sharing the agent of my turmoil or casting it away. With trembling fingers, I pulled it into view, seeing another message from my father. My eyes widened as a feeling of unease settled heavily in my chest. "It's time to meet. You've waited long enough, and there are things only I can explain. Be there tomorrow, or I'll come to you." The storm I had tried to shield my daughters from had arrived suddenly and undeniably. I looked into their eyes, searching for the reassurance I knew I had to give to counter the surprise lurking behind the truth. We might have to talk to him, but even as I uttered those words, I gripped Sophie's hand tighter, feeling the fine line between anguish and acceptance blur. I didn't know if I had the courage to face him, or whether the past could ever truly be reconciled with the future. Panic surged. I wasn't certain if I could navigate this newfound horizon where love, history, and fear swirled together like a tempest of uncertainty, each layer more suffocating than the last. But as I held my daughters in that moment of vulnerability, I also felt a flicker of something unexpected: connection. They deserved the truth, no matter how dark it seemed. And with Jane by our side, perhaps there was strength to be found even in the face of looming shadows. Tomorrow beckoned, and with it, the pulse of dread coiling tightly against hope, a conundrum as yet unsolved. I was about to step back into the home I'd abandoned long ago. Would we find healing, or would we stumble beneath the weight of our history once again? The dawn broke without ceremony, reluctant rays pushing their way into the corners of the room, revealing the remnants of last night's turmoil. My mind raced with memories, echoes of laughter, now ghosts of a happier time, mingled with the harsh recollections of past decisions. As I lay beneath those frail sheets, I felt as though I was stuck in a dream, where time could warp, and I was both the heroine and the villain of my own story. The weight of the impending confrontation coiled tightly around my chest. Mia was already awake, her silence heavy as she sat at the foot of my bed, a cross between worry and determination etched on her young face. "Mom, are you ready?" she whispered, squeezing my knee gently. Her fingers were warm, a stark contrast to the cold resolve I was fighting within me. I don't know," I managed to reply, glancing toward the window, where the world was waking up with a shout of color and life. Outside, people seemed to go about their day, blissfully uninformed of the turbulent storm brewing inside my heart. "It's just a talk," Mia said, her voice steady, yet I could see the uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Maybe he'll help you understand too. After everything, we can finally make sense of it." Sophie, still half asleep in the other room, stirred at the sound of our voices. I could see her small figure through the slightly open door, the way she stretched as if waking from a slumber steeped in dreams, blissfully unaware of the ropes tugging at our family. The innocence wrapped around her made my heart ache, a mingling of love and fear that perhaps she would too one day need to understand that shadowy figure lurking in the background of our lives. "We need to talk," was the phrase I'd dreaded all night, and yet here it was cloaked in the morning light, laden with expectation. I felt a heaviness seep into my bones and push me down into the mattress. Just as I was about to succumb to the spiraling anxiety tightening around me, Jane appeared at the doorway, her expression softening as she noticed the tension in the room. "I brought coffee," she said, offering a warm cup, the steam curling upward in tendrils, an anchor of comfort amid the storm. "You could use this. Trust me, caffeine's much better than fear." Mia smiled, his lips curling into a gentle grin as she accepted the cup eagerly. "Thanks, Jane." As I reluctantly accepted a mug of my own, the warmth seeped into my hands, but it felt devoid of the solace I so desperately craved. I thought of my father and the years spent traversing the vast terrain of silence between us. Would he show up for closure, or would he dredge up wounds best left untouched? "Let's not make a decision yet," Jane advised gently, her eyes shimmering with an understanding that didn't require explanation. "What matters right now is being together." But what if that was all we needed? The comfort of family woven tightly through moments of sheer vulnerability. The anticipation of facing the past had locked us into this loop of uncertainty, unsure whether we would emerge stronger or simply frayed at the edges. As we gathered around the small kitchen table, a strange kind of intimacy settled in. Suddenly, the enormity of my father lingered like an uninvited guest at dinner, a cloud casting shadows across sunny banter. "We can do this together," I finally said, feeling the shimmer of promise sliding into my voice. "No matter what happens, we're a team, right?" "Yes," Sophie exclaimed, smacking her tiny hands on the table, the fire in her spirit radiating outwards, infecting us all with that childlike optimism. "No matter what he's done, he's still our family," Mia added, echoing Sophie's sentiment. "And we've dealt with worse than this." The bravado in their declarations eased the tension brewing in my gut, light filtering through the remnants of fear. Yet with every word spoken, the fear seemed to morph into something sinister, a primal fear of the unknown. What truths would my father reveal? Was I strong enough to bear the burdens of his reality? Mama, Sophie lisped softly, catching my eye. If he's bad, can't we just ignore him? The sincerity behind her question nearly broke me, a reminder of the world I had fought to construct for her, one free from darkness and saturated only in love. I found myself smiling through tears, cradling that little girl in my gaze, wishing I could grant her wish, to protect her from the truth that had intertwined so tightly with our lives. Sometimes we have to face what we want to run away from. My love, I whispered, leaning closer to stroke her cheek. That way, we can learn to move forward. And just then, the phone buzzed again, the sound sharp and authoritative, slipping through our shared moment like a thief in the night. As I picked it up, dread tinged the air once more. It was another message from him: "I'm waiting. Don't make me come find you." The urgency was palpable, morphing hope into an icy grip of fear. I could feel my breath hitching, the weight of decision pressing down like gravity, anchoring me in place. With a trembling hand, I shared the words with Jane and my daughters, their faces reflecting the confusion and resolve colliding like titans within me. "I can't go back, can I?" "Not after all that's happened." "Maybe you do need to," Jane replied steadily, her voice imbued with strength. "Maybe it's time to confront your past, no matter how painful it seems." But as I held my daughter's hands, I felt frail and vulnerable, tethered to a future that teetered precariously on the edge of a dark abyss. The choice lay before me, a chasm of uncertainty looming large, while our love swirled upwards in a shimmering glimmer of hope. Could we be more than our history? The clock ticked closer to the moment that could shatter our fragile sanctuary, and as I drew a breath, I knew that stepping forth could uncover long-buried truths. Yet part of me hesitated, still shackled by fear and self-doubt. Was facing the past really the only path forward, or was I stepping into a darkness I could never escape? Tomorrow would come storming in, hungering for resolution. In that moment, I felt the sharp bite of the unknown attacking the edges of my heart in ways I could not articulate. One choice, one decision could thread the fragile bonds of love tighter or cut them forever. The day dawned gray and heavy, clouds clustering above like a flock of indecisive birds. I plugged my phone into its charger, watching the screen occasionally flicker with notification alerts. My heart knew I should look, but part of me recoiled at the prospect of more messages from him. Would they breathe life into old wounds, or were they just harbingers of the pain yet to come? After a long moment of indecision, I gathered the courage to read his latest missive. The words, "I'm still waiting," echoed relentlessly in my mind, a ghost anchoring me to the past while urging me unwillingly toward the future. Defiance flared momentarily, my father's words no longer held sway over me. But as quickly as that spark ignited, the shadows clutched at its flame. "Mama?" MIA's voice broke through the settling silence, her concern palpable as she leaned against the doorframe. I turned to meet her gaze, filled with that same sweet determination I'd seen earlier. We were both desperately clinging to hope in that moment, suspended between duty and desired. "I am okay, sweetheart," I assured her hollowly, though I could tell by the way her brow furrowed that she wasn't convinced. "Mama, if we wait too long, he might come here," she said softly, the innocence easing into caution as she thought of Sophie. Her worries wrapped around me like chains. "We need to do this not for him, but for us." I longed to believe that our shared determination could stave off the approaching storm, but the weight of fear gnawed at the edges of my resolve. I reached for Mia, pulling her into a hug, hoping to find some strength in her warmth. "It's just so much, Mia. There's so much I don't want to unpack. So many unnecessary wounds." "Then let's just unpack the ones that matter," she whispered into my hair, the gentle sound of her voice chipping away at the numbing fear that bound me. "We can do this together. We have each other." As we embraced, a sudden surge of love filled the cracks in my heart. Perhaps it was in the small moments that we could be whole. My resolve hybridized part fear, part fearlessness. Perhaps there could be light even in the darkness we were diving into. "Hey, you guys." The voice was bright and booming, an unexpected arrival breaking through our intimate cocoon. Aunt Clara, with her red curls bouncing like a joyful flame, entered with an armload of photographs cradled to her chest. "Look what I found while cleaning out my attic. A treasure trove from the past." Thought I'd distract you while you wait. A flicker of nostalgia sparked at the sight of the worn photo albums, their covers faded, pages yellowed with age like well-used bread. Mia brightened, her anxiety momentarily lifted by the promise of fond memories. "Oh, please," she exclaimed, diving into Aunt Clara's heap, while Sophie pranced around the room, drawing laughter with her enthusiastic antics. I watched, half distracted, as the spontaneity wrapped itself around my heart, giving me a brief reprieve from the pressure closing in. Photos of beach trips, birthday celebrations, those cherished family moments swept through time like fragrant breezes filled with laughter. Yet each framed memory held an aching reminder of what had been lost to time and silence. But as the laughter bubbled around me, another message from my father buzzed through the air, snapping me back. "If you care about your family, you'll be here soon," it said, thick with implications. The warmth from before drained like the color from the photographs, leaving me hollow and cold once more. Tension filled the air, mingled with the cries of childhood euphoria. Just then, Sophie approached with her large, innocent eyes. "Mama, is everything okay?" Her small fingertips brushed against my arm, a tiny anchor in the torrent. I knelt to her level, desperately searching for the right words. "It will be, sweetheart," I promised, attempting to instill her with the same faith I was still struggling to reclaim. "But we might need to face a lot of hard things first, but you'll be okay, right?" she asked, her voice a whisper sewn together with innocence I could hardly withstand. I wanted nothing more than to grant her that illusion, to craft a bubble of protection around her because she deserved so much more than the weight of familial burdens. "Of course," I nodded, trying to project strength. Yet the question lingered, rattling around in my mind, would I truly be okay in what lay ahead? The uncertainty loomed large, a shadow creeping closer, brimming with the promise of heartache. Just then, Aunt Clara turned, her laughter still bubbling from the previous moment. "You know, I always wished our family would have a huge reunion," she said, pointing to the images of cousins and long-lost relatives. "We could make it happen, you know. No pasts to haunt us, just open skies, laughter, and love." Her unsought optimism flickered against the weight bearing down on my shoulders. The notion of a reunion planted a seed of wild hope, but as quickly as it bloomed, it was doused by the thoughts of my father. "If only things were that simple," I murmured, but even as I spoke, I felt something in me shift. Perhaps rekindling connections could yield healing, could allow for reconciliation many believed impossible. Each sound, each smile shared around me represented the foundation on which I could build something new, but would it be enough? Then another vibration from my phone shattered my reverie. With trembling hands, I picked it up and inhaled sharply at the message reflected on the screen. "I'm running out of patience. You know our time is fleeting." With dread clutching at my heart, I glanced over at my girls, Mia, hopeful yet earnest, Sophie, blissfully unaware of the gravitation that moment of tender innocence propelled the stakes even higher. I didn't want any storm to ripple across their radiant faces. "Okay," I heard myself whisper, more to the universe than to anyone, "I will do it. I can't let fear rule my life any longer." But as I accepted the truth of my decision, a bleeding horn outside shattered our fragile moment. Dread pumped through my veins. "Looks like someone is here," Jane muttered, a slow understanding dawning in her eyes, drawing all focus toward the door. With one glance at my daughters, the weight of my next choice bore down heavy as time stretched almost painfully. We hadn't just been looking into the past, we had been standing on the precipice of our future, teetering at the edge of hope and despair. So much rested on this next moment. Would I be strong enough to face the confrontations that awaited? Would I truly find the answers I sought, or would that darkness expose wounds we weren't prepared to bear? The doorbell rang again, but before I could react, another frantic message pinged, "Last chance to confront the truth. Choose wisely. I'll see you soon." As reality settled heavily around me, I felt the air grow thick and taut, brimming with unspilled fears. I stood at the crossroads of discovery and denial, with no map to guide me home. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, ironically bright against the suffocating silence we'd cocooned ourselves in. Each peal echoed like an urgent drum, sending tremors of fear quaking through me. I shared a charged glance with Aunt Clara, her brows knitting into concern. Should I get it? Mia asked, glancing toward the door with uncertainty painted across her features. No. I held up a hand, feeling every ounce of maternal instinct coalesce into a singular resolve. Let me. The weight of that decision felt monumental, almost absurdly heavy as I approached the door. The uncertainty gnawed at me like an insistent puppy. I breathed in deeply, aligning my thoughts with the love I felt for my daughter. It was a catalyst, a buoy that momentarily kept oceanic anxieties at bay. I placed my hand on the cool doorknob, letting it anchor me before twisting it open. The door swung wide, revealing an unexpected sight, a figure clothed in a weathered beige trench coat, their face shadowed under a wide-brimmed hat. A rush of familiarity struck me straight in the chest, electrifying and terrifying. It was my sister Lily, looking as though the seasons had twisted and aged her since we last hugged. Lily? My voice emerged as a whisper, tentative and barely holding itself together. Maya, she replied, her voice a soft melody underscored by the ache of years spent apart. But even as she spoke, a tension hummed in the air, like coiled springs ready to unravel. What are you doing here? I managed, emotions teetering dangerously close to spilling over. Lily hesitated, her eyes reflecting a storm of regret and longing, as if she were wrestling with an internal battleground. I heard about your father, she finally confessed, shifting her stance as guilt coursed through the air between us. I came because I care about you. I couldn't just sit back and wait anymore. My heart raced back into the fray, caught between the torrent of our shared past and the fragile future I was trying to build for my daughters. Hope flickered anew, but it was quickly tainted by the years of distance, the weight of unresolved arguments, and a life shattered by old wounds. Lily, we can't just pick up where we left off, I cautioned, unable to keep my voice from tinging with bitterness. Not after everything. No, she interjected softly, her voice a tender lull. I'm not trying to erase our past. I'm here to face it, with you. I've been running for too long, hiding from what happened. What I did. Each word she uttered swung like a pendulum, reminding me of the unresolved tremors that lingered in my heart. We need to heal, Maya. We have to face him together. My brain spun, battling against the instinct to embrace this moment, the light she was offering. Yet the prospect of confronting the shared demons was terrifying. The reminders of childhood laughter intermingled with deeper scars threatened to unravel everything I clung to for stability. Just then, a tugging at my pant leg broke my reverie. I looked down to find Sophie staring up at me, her large eyes gleaming with confusion. Mama? Who is that? It's Aunt Lily, sweetheart, I murmured, the words tasting foreign. It had been too long since I could easily introduce the familial bond that had once been woven so tightly between us. Are you okay? Sophie's question, innocent and unwavering, sent an arrow straight to my heart. The weight of my choices hung like an anvil, and I could only pray that our eventual confrontation with the past would not let it crush my children. Before I could respond, another voice bubbled from behind Lily. Whoa, so this is our lost aunt? No wonder we couldn't find her. Mia stepped forward, peering at Lily with the boldness only a child could muster, the tension around us bending under her youthful ferocity. You should have come back sooner. We could have been a family. Why did you stay away? Just like that, the dam broke. Guilt and sorrow spilled forth from Lily like rain on parched earth. I was scared, Mia, she confessed, emotion cracking her tone. But I should have been there for you, your mother, and for everyone. I missed birthdays, holidays, too many days. I'm so sorry. Mia's face softened, and in that moment, I witnessed the budding compassion of youth trying to comprehend pain wrapped in complex layers. The lovable, innocent Mia who believed in the power of forgiveness had just made the first move toward mending bridges. I felt a sharp breath catch in my throat, an unshed tear threatening to spill. These moments of connection, me children reaching out with the very nature I'd adopted, felt like glimpses of unanswered prayers. Perhaps hope was worth risking heartbreak. Yet, before I could speak or move, a seismic crack echoed through the air. The thought of my father loomed larger than ever, pulsating powerfully against the backdrop of familial reparations. Suddenly, a jab of panic consumed me. The forces of the past couldn't simply dissolve with the promise of healing. In my heart, I had known the day would come. I had known we would face this moment, but now the shadow of impending confrontation loomed large, waiting just beyond the horizon, stirring dread deep in my gut. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of tires crunching against gravel, ominous and foreboding. The clouds above seemed to mirror my emotional chaos, rumbling like the echoes of secrets yet to surface. "Stay," I finally implored Lily, her expression curious but wary. "Please, stay. If we're going to do this, I need you here." A flicker of determination sparked in her eyes, but it was cut short by another text that pierced through the thick air. I forced myself to reach for my phone, trembling as I read the message. "I hope you're ready. The deadline approaches. I have everything planned, just arrived." I looked up to find Lily's expectant gaze upon me, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't just facing my past but the very concept of family. Would I find the strength to embrace what lay ahead, or would I stumble into the darkness, dragging my daughters down with me? As the rumble of thunder overhead began to resonate with an ominous tone, I felt the weight of history teetering precariously on the edge, ready to break free. Would we fall into despair, or rise from the ashes, resplendent with renewed ties? With my heart pounding and a resolve that both frightened and exhilarated me, I faced the crossroad of our future only to find that the doorway into our reckoning lay wide open. Would I have the courage to step through? The rain began gently, misting against the window panes in a soft rhythm that felt oddly comforting amidst the chaos swirling inside me. I blinked, allowing the droplets to trace their paths down the glass while preparing to dismantle the weight of expectation clinging to my chest. With every heartbeat, I felt the storm brewing outside mirror the tumult within, yet as the sound of laughter broke through the tension, my gaze shifted back to Sophie and Mia, their innocent joy a balm against the fears gnawing at my insides. "Mom, can we do the family photo albums now?" Mia asked eagerly, her eyes sparkling with the same warmth that radiated through the room. "Aunt Clara brought so many." Sophie chimed in, her small hands gesturing animatedly, filled with unadulterated excitement. It was that flicker of hope I was trying to cling to, the tender moments that reminded me of the brighter threads in the tapestry of our family. I hesitated, conscious of the weight heavier than the albums I knew lingered in the corners of the room, the need for truth and the urgency of unearthing secrets kept too long. The images that would emerge from those pages might unearth more than memories of laughter. Part of me wanted to flee, to cocoon myself in ignorance, but as Aunt Clara's laughter danced in the air, I realized that facing this together could also be a gesture of healing. "Okay, let's do it," I finally said, forcing a smile through the cracks of my anxiety while stepping back into the warmth they created with their playful banter. The three of them gathered around the dining room table as I sat down, the old oak surface eddying with tales of grief and celebration, and as the pages turned, I could feel each moment shimmering in the light of our shared laughter. But as the memories swept through, I couldn't shake the impending dread that lurked at the threshold. I could almost hear my father's voice, waiting impatiently outside our lives, ready to storm into the fragile haven we had created. "I always loved this one," Mia exclaimed, holding a photograph of my younger self, radiant in a summer dress next to her father. "Look, Mom. You looked so happy." The words sent a pang through my heart. To feel joy in a time I felt so far removed from was a jarring contrast. How had it slipped away so quickly? Memories, once light and vibrant, now etched with shadows. "Mom?" Sophie's little voice was earnest as the rain pelted the window harder. "Was Daddy nice?" The question hung in the air, pulling me out of reverie. My heart raced, the weight of the truth looming over me, thickening the air. "He was," I offered softly, as my gaze shifted away, swallowing back the myriad of unspoken complexities. But behind that simplicity lay layers, fragile wisdom and whispering ghosts. Before I could respond further, Lily stepped closer, her presence buoying my resolve. "You know, the happiest moments are often those when we're brave enough to share our truths," she said, meeting my gaze with an earnest softness. "Talking about your father doesn't have to be scary. It can be liberating." Her words felt like a gentle prod, nudging me closer to the decision I'd been avoiding. The memories I had tucked away felt alive again, entangled in the very life I had built for my girls. As the rain drummed on, almost cathartic, I took a deep, shuddering breath. "Sophie, about your father there's something you don't know. He struggled with many burdens. There were times he lost his way. Sharing the weight of his challenges felt monumental, yet I knew I had to tread carefully. The reality of speaking would define how we walked forward. How? She pressed, her curiosity persistent and unyielding. With my heart hammering hard against my ribcage, I murmured, people sometimes hide their pain inside. It becomes a shadow they can't shake. Sharing this truth bore a different weight now, especially in the light of the reflection I saw in my children's eyes. What if we all talked about our shadows? Mia suggested brightly, her enthusiasm radiating. Because you're not alone, right? The innocence in her words grounded me, and tears blurred my vision. In that space, I felt the fortitude grow, a desire to break the cycle of trauma woven amidst our family history. You're right. I've kept it inside for far too long, I spoke, my voice gaining strength, emboldened by their presence. Just then, the doorbell pierced through the cozy atmosphere, echoing through the space with alarming clarity the looming reckoning. My heart clenched again, panic pulling at my core. "To need a moment," I whispered, stepping away from the table while everyone continued to share laughter. Each chime felt louder as I approached the door, dread coiling tightly with every step. Would facing my father finally allow me to reconcile the fractured parts of our lives? Would it mend relationships or just reveal more fractures that had yet to surface? With trembling hands, my resolve hardened, I reached for the knob. Before opening the door, I whispered to myself, whatever happens, I will not face this moment alone. We are family. As the door swung open, I found my father standing there, weathered and aged, his eyes clouded with 1,000 unspoken words. The air shifted, the reality overwhelming yet oddly grounding. And just like that, the storm beyond faded, leaving space for the truth to thrive. It was ours to face together. "Hello, Maya," he said, his voice a whisper barely holding back the tide of emotions. "I've come to talk." Suddenly, my girls rushed behind me, hand in hand, the trio of us forming a united front. I took a bold step forward, shaking off the shadows that had threatened to engulf us all, ready, stronger than before. "Let's talk." For in that moment, as the air crackled with anticipation, I felt something shift within me, like a bond being reforged, transforming familial wounds into a tapestry woven with love, strength, and possibility. Maybe healing wasn't so far-fetched. Maybe, together, we could weather this storm, too. And the last words printed against the canvas of my heart surged forth, bold and unyielding. Families might not be perfect, but they are worth fighting for.